Welcome to the Sensory Empower podcast. I'm Bethany, your host. I'm a holistic occupational therapist with over a decade of experience in supporting individuals helping to transform their world through sensory empowerment. This podcast is your guide to the transformative world of sensory storytelling, holistic tools, and empowerment strategies. And welcome to the Sensory Empower podcast. I'm Bethany, your host, and today I am so excited to invite Liz, a good friend, previous client, and another podcaster onto the Sensory Empower podcast today. Liz has 3 wonderful kids, and we've done all sorts of fun brainstorming on like sensory consultation and just doing some sensory coaching. So we'll kind of dive into some of those facets of things that have been supportive. And Liz, can we announce that you have a lovely podcast called Getting Found with Liz Browne? So I want to welcome you to the podcast, and if you can just share a little bit with everyone about you.
Thanks. Yeah, I kind of am doing more like YouTube now, I guess, instead of the podcast route. I kind of stopped doing the podcast. I don't know. It's been I'm trying to like figure out what works for me, you know? But yeah, so I actually have our interview that we did on my YouTube. So you can put in Getting Found with Liz Browne on YouTube and check that out if you're interested.
YouTube's.
It was my first positive comment. I got it on that one, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!"
I love it.
So that was cool.
We had so much fun. We talked vagal nerve. We talked overstimulation, the power of the pause. I know that was kind of some of the things I wanted to touch on a little bit today. Was just thinking about the power of the pause, and it's something I coach on a lot. So I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit. Maybe with some of the understandings of different sensory profiles, sensory preferences, and maybe how that has supported you feeling a difference in how you go through day-to-day life with your family.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when I first reached out to you for coaching, because I was kind of like trying to remember, what's our history? Why did I reach out to Bethany originally? And it was because my daughter like loves being naked to this day, loves being naked. And so she was having a hard time transitioning from diaper to underpants, not diaper to being potty trained. Like she was totally potty trained, but she just didn't want to, she liked being naked. So it was really hard to get clothes on her. And we thought it was like a sensory thing. So I reached out to Bethany and then I realized and it's funny because I actually was a preschool teacher and a Montessori school teacher, and you just like realize that all of this, if you want to change a child's life, you have to be the one as the adult to implement change. You can't expect your little one to. So it's like you have to drive the ship. And so it was funny because I went into you thinking, okay, you're going to help me specifically like with Eloise. And you did, we talked about that too. But what I think was a bigger takeaway for me was like, the power of the pause, just taking a second. And I'm proud of myself. I've been meditating a little bit lately. Nice. I have a 10-minute one that I do. So it's like kind of a longer pause now.
Yeah. And when do you find times? I know that's always like a question I receive with clients, like, when do we find the time, right? You are a busy mom of 3 young ones. So how do you find the time? How do you build it into your daily routines, habits? Like, I would love for you to just share your insights and wisdom, Liz, because I think that can be a struggle for a lot of people.
Definitely.
How do we fill it into our busy day?
Yeah. And, I recently read a book. I actually also used to struggle with addiction. And so I read a book called Quit Like a Woman recently because it had been recommended to me, and it was really, really good. And she talked about if you have to be really intentional with things and make, and if if you don't want to drink, which like I always don't want to drink, and she's like, you have to prep yourself to make sure that you have to do things, implement things actually to make sure. So I was kind of less about like not drinking and more about like not blowing up at my kids, and I just realized, I live in Phoenix, summertime. My children both stopped napping, totally stopped napping. And so I was just like having a really hard time in the afternoons, I was like just really reaching, like I felt like I was being really mean to them and just a really short fuse, And so I whipped out the iPads, honestly. To be honest, I introduced iPads to the children, which I sort of immediately regretted a little bit because it's like they're like crack addicts with it. It's
Addiction
absolutely
piece.
insane. Having been around
Mhm.
addicts my whole life, like my whole adult life, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. But I found like a good educational game that I feel okay with them, having. And then I just go into my room. They're on the couch with their iPads. I have one headphone in, one ear
Mhm.
open, and I just pray to God real quick, please give me 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Please.
A request.
And sometimes I get 10 minutes in. Yeah. Like sometimes I get 5 minutes in, sometimes I get 10 minutes in, sometimes I do it twice and I get 20 minutes in. And so I just think even just taking the intention of taking the break is powerful in
Definitely.
itself. And also sometimes with little kids, you have to train them. Like, mommy needs 10 minutes. You can be on your iPad. It's an independent
Mhm.
activity. And so now they're kind of more used to it too.
Well, I'm hearing
So
like building things in, the power of intention setting, which, whoa, what a game changer when I started adding that into my life. Wow. It really,
yeah.
setting those in and how they kind of coincide with habits, I think is such a powerful reflection. Like I set in on Monday mornings an intention of the week and I turned it into a habit. And that has been a game changer of just coming up when moments of
Oh, I love
dysregulation
that.
happen all the time. And so that returning back
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
like word of the week or that phrase of the week. I'm confident is one that I use a lot. I am empowered is another one I use. Just positive affirmations to have that kind of intention and focus. I am grounded, I'm here, I'm present. And then those
I love
intentional
that.
use of those pause moments and longer ones. And I think it is once the family starts to get into that beautiful routine, it's like turning into this like glorious quiet time for all.
Yeah. And honestly, too, when there are moments of my children playing together
Mhm.
nicely or watching TV or just like being into something, I'll just like hop into my bathroom
Mhm.
and then until they come find me, or like I'll just like go somewhere where I have some quiet
Mhm.
time. Like even I'll fold laundry in my room by myself so I don't have to be around them. I can hear them. They're good,
Mhm. Mhm.
I check on them.
But it's that the like
Just remove myself from them when I
yes,
can.
the focus, and then I'm hearing like the themes of environmental shifting, which we coached on as well. Like, how do we change the environment to help things be just less overwhelming? Can we put in and listen to earbuds? Can we use, and I was going to say, like, we can use our lovely soda water elixirs that we that we brought us. Listen, I love soda water. I've been obsessed with soda water. I also, just as a side note, want to make sure I'm noting that book that you referenced earlier, a very powerful book, a very powerful shift in my own life. And I stopped drinking in
Oh
November
yeah.
of this year. And it has been like so deeply powerful
Oh
to
yeah.
have those reflections and think about
Yeah.
all the tools. Like, I like the bubbly, and here it is. I have bubbly and tang. And I've got
Yeah.
like tart cherry juice and ginger juice and like make this little elixir that meets all of my oral motor sensory needs because I've frequently biting my nails and stuff. So that's Wes. Nice
Yeah.
work, brain. Nice work, body.
I love it. Yeah, I really love that
It's very
book.
powerful.
I think every woman should read it. Like
Mm.
not just even if you want to keep drinking, just like it's a really good
And I
book.
think it
It's a
so
really
much
good
talks
book.
about like society and marketing
Yeah.
and how our brains in
Yeah.
the day and age are getting so marketed to, and can we have our own true intentions of ourselves and what we're
Yeah.
hoping for.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of, yeah, I guess it's like the phase I'm in. I always relate to like children stuff in adult themes though, because the book itself, it kind of has the theme of something I saw on Instagram about children that's like, if the seed or if if the flower doesn't bloom, you don't blame the seed, or you don't change the seed, you change the environment, or you don't blame the
Mm.
seed, you change whatever, you know what I mean? And I think that's been really powerful as a parent, just like
Mm.
I guess coming back to the sensory thing is like I can view my house, because I have a big open kitchen and living room where we hang out all the time. And so, if my kids are really agitated, change the environment, and obviously I can't all the time, but sometimes I'll just like get out of the house with them. I'll be like, we'll go to Dutch Brothers. It's like a hour trip because I go to one far away, you know, we make it a whole thing. And or you just like turn off the overhead. I don't ever have my overhead lights on, but you know, turn off the loud, annoying thing that's on YouTube, you know, or that beeping toy that keeps going in the background.
Yes. Turning down
or just remove them from each other.
Yeah. It's such a, like, once you start to realize things. I had an intake in home this week, and the TV was on in the other room. The kids were playing with like this like music toy that I brought out, like a little singing bell, but it kind of had some chiming to it. And the dad was trying to fill out the adult sensory profile. And he kept, and you could just see the auditory processing, like this lag in the response. And those were those like literally perfect, beautiful moments to talk about changing the environment and how we can best support auditory processing, how we can best support each other's senses. And it was just like the most perfect conversation. He was like, I'm having a hard time. And I go, does this happen a lot? Is this an experience that you have a lot? Could we shift the environment right now in this moment during our initial intake and turn off the external that's in the other room? As it was just kind of this like reverberation. And I myself, my sensory needs sat there and I was like, oh, this is a really bright light.
I'm the mom. Yeah, I'm the mom that will like ask the kid, please, can you turn on your iPad? Like, it blows my mind that kids are allowed to like have things full volume, you know, so or loud. Like I'm very auditory, sensory. You know what I'm trying to say. It's been a long day.
It's such a, I don't know. I think this always just like, I love having these beautiful conversations about like different sensory preferences and sensory profile needs, because I think it's just this, the more we chat about it, the more aware we can be of ourselves and others. And I know, you know, we kind of coached through and talked through like different sensory needs where you have more sensory sensitivities. There were some sensory seeking presentations in a few of your children. And so we kind of talked through like, how do we find that balance if we're seeking out and needing? And that's the exact same thing that your little cup is overflowing and feeling overwhelmed with. So has that kind of, that way of thinking about senses and that kind of empowerment coaching we did, has that like impacted daily challenges and like family dynamics and how you guys do today?
Definitely. Yeah. Again, like, you know, I went for Eloise originally, but I do know that I think you helped me a lot with my oldest son. And just, I'm trying to explain it, but it's like almost I can put like a lens on where I'm just like scan for sensory stuff, you know, instead of being like overwhelmed myself. You know what's really helped me, and I don't know that this is like a sensory thing necessarily, but it's just maybe they'll make me a little reel. Hey, make me a reel of this, because I was thinking about making one, but it's like, so I used to work at a Montessori school, and they had cameras in the classrooms that parents could live stream, which I have mixed feelings about. I just think that you need to trust your childcare providers, you know. But they're also good, you know. I was always aware that someone's parent could be watching me, you know. And so I was, you know, I just had this, I was like, it was like a job, and I kind of was like on stage almost, you know, like, and so I was always thinking like, how would this parent want me to handle the situation? And so I try to do that to myself, where I take myself out of the parenting role and put myself in like the caregiver role, where it's like a job. So it's not personal. Like, really, you know, it's hard when your little kids are screaming and yelling and they're out of control, and like you're like inner demon or like childhood traumas, like you're a bad mom and you know you're failing, and then you're like overwhelmed. And then, but when you're not in the mom role and you're kind of stepping back and you're like, okay, this is my job right now, and this kid is acting out of control, but like I can't scream in their face because their parent's going to see that and I'm going to get fired from my job, you know? So, it just helps me in like really high stress situations, or even like when I'm just burnt out, you know, like when I'm like, oh my God, what do you want? You know? So, and not that it works all the time. Like I do have moments of losing my mind at them and like feeling bad about it. But I apologize after. I think that's the difference between my generation and my parents' generation, is like the willingness to be wrong.
And
and change.
practice growth opportunities and acknowledge that there might need to be a shift. Yes. Yeah. And the awareness to learn too. It's very, I think I love the reflections that you just shared of just kind of when we are kind of even having those like in those moment thinking about your thinking, you're like, how do I respond to this scenario? Like you give the perfect example of like there was a literal camera like of an additional stressor. How would this parent want me to respond to this situation? And I then need to co-regulate because this situation is escalating and the child is not regulated, cannot regulate with a dysregulated adult. How do we use those tools? So it sounds like you've found those moments of pause, moments of meditation. What, like, in the moment, is it like putting on your favorite song? Is it like what things you squeeze something? I know we've talked about like the tactile things that you like to kind of twist, and I love doing that too. That's something I do very frequently. Is there something like in the moment that seems to be really like a different power tool? Like I've got my little squeeze ball that's filled with lavender that I just keep in my pocket sometimes.
I do like I do audiobooks a lot, all day, every day. It's funny. I always joke. I'm like, oh yeah, I don't struggle with addiction anymore, and I've read like 84 books this year. Like it's insane.
You're assimilating all the
because
knowledge.
I always also yeah. That's why I was like, honestly, I might as well take the time to learn a bunch of stuff and but I also do ones that are kind of just like escapism too, like like beach books, whatever. But so those have helped a lot because I was thinking about it today and I was like, I kind of like disassociate, I guess sometimes, like, because I think sometimes like it can be so loud in my house just because I have a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 9-year-old, and like, when everyone was home for summer, like, and there's just like a certain level of chaos that's just to be expected at all times, and there's rare moments of non-chaos. And I try not to do too much iPad time, so I do like, we have a million poppets. It's funny, I haven't, I guess, intentionally sought that out, but I do find myself like Play-Doh, like just working something, or I'll like, honestly, I'll like do dishes or something like kind of task that's mindless. And so I can, and maybe I'll put on some music that I like, or just like, okay, this task needs to be done. I'm going to think of it as meditation.
Oh, I love it.
Like, I'll give you another really good meditation. Hey, make another reel for me about this, okay? The first time I went to rehab, there was this, they're like, I hate the word meditation. Like, I mean, the reality is everyone thinks you're like, and that's just, I do a guided one when I have my like 10-minute one, but there's so much that's going on in our world all of the time, and just like not being on your phone and is like, it can be a meditation, like today I got gas and I was like, okay, I'm not going to be on my phone, but because then you get antsy sometimes. So one of my favorite meditations I do is I just like call out different sounds in the environment. So I'm like, okay, I hear a truck engine, I hear birds, I hear a car horn honking, and it's just like kind of regulates me, and I'm not on my phone, and I can like, and then like the thoughts I need to think kind of float through sometimes, or then, I think people are afraid of thinking their thoughts too. It's like, take that time. Like if you have bad thoughts coming up, like maybe you need to think about them.
Pushing them away ultimately can be a much harder route than working through and finding tools to process.
Yeah, totally.
Absolutely. I love the like auditory mindful moment of just like, I hear this thing like that's a really powerful one that could be completed at any point in those moments. I mean, mindful dishwashing, mindful eating, mindful like nail painting if you're into nail painting, or you curl your hair and you style your hair, or
and it takes the emotion
like, just something. You're noticing the textures, you're noticing the smells, you're noticing the sounds, you're noticing the present awareness. It's so that's what a beautiful example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of interrupted you. I was gonna say, like, when my children are really screaming and stuff, you can use it to like take the emotion out of it, instead of like, my kids are being so annoying right now and screaming. Like, I hear children screaming, I hear kids fighting, I mean, and not that I don't get in evolve when they fight, but a lot sometimes it's just like you gotta let them do like
Yes.
bickering, you know?
Fighting over the toys. And I know
Yeah,
when it's
fighting over
not
the
Arizona heat, like going to the park and having park time, nature healing time, and mindfulness in nature is
yeah,
something you guys do too. Is there
definitely.
a I know, I remember, I mean, I lived in Arizona for 10 years. That's how we met, living in Arizona and some mutual friends.
Hmm.
And I struggled so hard during summers because I am a busy sensory seeker. I gotta go outside. I need to go
Yeah,
ride my bike. I need to go do the things. So
yeah,
swimming was one that I found. I was like, okay,
yeah.
well, it cools me down. That's good. Then I'm not overheated and angry. Yay! I've been a swimmer since I was
Let's have
a
access to a
young
pool though.
child, but yeah, but access to a pool, yes, definitely. It's like trying.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely everyone struggles.
Mhm.
Everyone always is like, we're thinking about moving. You know, like it's hard. It's really
Absolutely.
hard. And I got a
Oh,
walking pad.
nice. Okay, so indoor
Um,
movement needs. I love it. Okay.
yeah, and an
Nice.
exercise bike, but I actually my friend moved to Australia, so she gave me both of them because like the plugs are different
Oh, yeah,
there, you
that's
know.
interesting.
So the exercise bike's in my garage still, but I've been doing, and I don't really ever watch TV anymore because it's usually kid TV that I have, you know, like, and then we watch like one episode of Modern Family before bed, and then we're so tired, you know. So I told myself like I could watch like a show, whatever show I wanted when I'm walking, you know.
Love it.
So
I went my
yeah, because like I don't.
No,
Go
I was
ahead.
just going to talk about movement, but I'd love to hear you.
Oh yeah, because I also think that like people, especially people who have struggled with addiction, they think that they're never supposed to numb
Mm,
out on anything, you know? And like, yeah, you have to be careful of what you numb out with, you know? Like, but it's okay to like read a trashy book or watch some kind of like mindless trashy TV, you know? I'm still intentional with that because I like avoid toxic energy in my life. So like I'm not gonna watch something that's like all about toxic energy, you know? But like I've been watching Love on the Spectrum.
I've heard some amazing things about that.
I mean, it's so great.
Oh,
It's so great.
that's so cool. And that a perspective of sensory need awareness too within that could be. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about this of like I used to do this thing when I was a kid and that like way back when
Oh
we were
yeah.
kids and our sensory needs as a child and then now sensory needs as an adult and that like reflection. We've chatted about this a little bit, Liz, so I'd love to hear just like have things stayed the same in your sensory preferences? Are there like new tools that you've found? Are there new needs now that you've got some busy kiddos that have a higher volume in the house? Like just thinking about like childhood
Yeah.
sensory preferences and now.
You know, I've always people think I'm a really like extroverted person because I am outgoing and I do like being around people and stuff. I think I'm an extroverted introvert
Mm-hmm.
because I've always really liked a lot of alone time, a lot of space. I'm very precious with my time and or like, you know, time is very precious to me and so I try to, I mean, I like when my husband gets home from work, I have like my mom lunch break, we call it. And I just go into our room, I lock the door because my daughter will come in, you know, and I mean, I can still hear them screaming. I'm sorry. Like, I was like, oh gosh, she's going to hear that. They're going to hear that. But so and like, you know, I don't know, it's like reading a sensory thing. I've always been a huge reader and I've always like really loved the escapism in books. Whatever it is, I feel like I find myself really able to kind of escape to there. And that's been something that's really, right now I'm just doing a lot of audiobooks because I don't have, there's no place for me to like sit down and read usually. You know, I could make time, but like I'm good with audiobooks.
Yeah,
So,
you can go
um,
through that and still pick up on the story. Like I've found that
yeah.
to be a really
Sometimes I'm like,
yeah.
wait, what?
Wait,
Wait,
that's the cool
what?
thing about audiobooks. Oops, I missed that very important detail. Go back 15
Yeah,
seconds.
totally. Yeah,
It's accommodating.
totally. Yeah. And I'm trying to think, I have this like funny story about like I used to fuzzy a wig when I was a child. Or okay, so I call it fuzzying. Yes, I still do this as an adult. Usually it's like when I'm stressed, you'll catch me like and or like when I'm really tired or feeling sad, or something. It's kind of like my instinctual go-to. But I don't know. I'm trying to think what else. Like I am like auditory. Like loud noises definitely set me off, and that's like been pulled through. Um, I think like I don't know. This is a funny question, but like I don't know if sensitivity can also be like emotional. Like I feel like I've always been really
Oh,
emotionally
yes,
sensitive, So like I don't know if that's sensory, but whatever. But like I feel like it makes my parents always told me I was like too sensitive. Like I used to like have rashes on my skin a lot. Like I don't know, and just so like you're just so sensitive. You take everything so sensitively, and I've been trying to be better about that, and like even especially like having kids because like what they're doing is not a personal attack on me, They're just like going through being kids, and sometimes that means kind of being like assholes a little bit, and like saying mean things to you. Like I have had like you're the worst mom ever, and stuff like that, and it's just like you can't take that stuff personally, I'm like I'm not though. I'm not. So I don't know who you're talking to. I'll show you the worst one ever.
I think there's just some like really beautiful moments of just like the awareness of the things that we still need. And I've seen that as a huge trend that those that have sensory differences that can impact daily functioning, especially the sensory sensitive world. We're just sensitive to everything. And so we're sensitive to people's emotions. And I've known since a very young child that I'm a big feeler. Always have been. I feel my feelings super strong. They come very fast sometimes in my body. Tears come very easily for me. They always have. And that's who I am. And I think with the moments of beautiful acceptance of this is who I am, these are my needs, how can I meet my needs? So yes, emotional regulation and sensory regulation are tied in so closely. Our interoceptive cues in our bodies let us know what our feelings feel like. So they are so beautifully intertwined with the sensations.
Yeah. And having kids is such a reflection back too. I really see myself and my daughter a lot. Actually, it was so funny. I picked her up from preschool today and I used to teach with her teacher.
Cool.
So like that's so I was like, that's the only reason I took her there because I was like, okay, well, she's gonna be the favorite kid, And so a little boy had like come up to me last week and was like, she was naughty today. And I was like, okay, whatever. But so I texted because I'm like, I don't think she's not, I don't think she was naughty. And I texted the teacher and she said that she definitely stands up for herself. And I was like, I don't care about that, But I like, like people in her space, she'll let them know, like, get out of my way. And she won't do it in like the sweet little cute girl way because I don't do it that way. I tell them like, back up,
And like when we get to think of it, that perspective of like we're standing in our truth. Eloise is being a badass and standing in her truth and saying, no, here's my line, here's my boundary. Reception comes in.
She likes her space. She likes to like be by herself. She actually, the teacher's like, she reminds me a lot of you. And I was like, yeah, checks out, like. But also like it can be really challenging, a mirror of like it just like pushes the buttons, like just all three of my children have things about them but like or like triggering to my inner child or like my mother wound or whatever it is, and that are lessons I guess for me to learn and some of them like definitely are sensory, like and it's funny, Eloise is still like really weird. Well, she's getting way better, knock on wood, about clothes. She still likes to be naked a lot, but
also hot in Arizona summer. I feel like temperature was always the component.
But like my husband's like really sensitive about clothes, so it's like it's it's like, okay, do we have to worry about it too? Like I think you also have to pick your battles of like, some moms are like, oh, I'm like, wear whatever you want, girl. Like I don't care if it's the same, it has to be clean, but like I don't care if you match, I don't care as long as you got clothes on, like we're good. Obviously I'm not going to let her wear like a parka in the summertime or whatever, like, but there's things that like you just have to learn to pick your battles, I guess, or like also learn to like let kids be their imperfect, quirky, weird selves, because everyone's supposed to be that, and like you're supposed to be the safe place for them to be that. So, and I also think too, like it's kind of a fine balance too, because, sometimes you do have to like be the mean parent about like certain sensory things. Like you have to shut down the sibling being really, really loud, or you have to make them take a break from their iPad for a week because it's like crazy, like, and so you have to balance that too of like helping them get through challenges
and understanding their needs and still yet remaining fiercely authentic themselves. It's so beautiful. I was just talking yesterday about the power of play and how like we can just go into such a wonderful space of deeply authentic selves in play. Like it's the exact opposite of a bunch of negative emotions, right? If we can move into playful energy, like we're so regulated.
Yes,
and we're so ourselves.
Silly. That is
we're so relaxed. Like
for sure. When my kids are super angry, I just like pull out the silly for sure. And also play is so much fun. Like you have to be willing to be silly and like look strange or have people be like, what? Yeah, definitely play is like super powerful. And like they'll tell you things when you take time to connect with them through play,
Oh, absolutely. Like, the stories that come out and the like just the awareness of I think the collaboration, especially if we're like plopped on the floor. I feel like position is a big piece of that too. Because it can be very grounding when we're squatting, and it can be very grounding when we're sitting. And usually then we're at child level of eyes, as long as our bodies are safe, of course, and there's not massive escalation. But I think it can diffuse so quickly when we just plop on the floor. I'm such a floor plopper, and I introduce myself as hello, Bethany. Hello, I'm Bethany. I am a sensory OT, and I am a floor plopper, and I will just like go into a family's home or like going into a situation. Of course, there's spaces where I have to be uber professional, and I can't do that. But then I'm like moving in my chair, and luckily, when I sit in school meetings, I have a lot of movement. Like you've probably seen me swirl. I have my little swirly stool. This is my movement chair. So.
I know. I'm playing with a paper clip.
I love it so much. I know. I have this like, little I'm like, okay. This little fidgety pen. It's like a little...
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I don't know. It's got fun textures.
It's grounding for the kids.
So
like you mentioned, like it's grounding for you, like sitting, and like it's so. I feel like you're like a pillar with the kids, and they feed off your energy. And
such a I don't know. I think I just thoroughly enjoy being able to play a lot. Like if I have an opportunity to go jump on a trampoline and play like the crack the egg game, I'm like made my night.
Yeah, me too, for sure.
And it's so much jumping, so much deep pressure. My sensory systems.
And I feel like I was raised by parents who kind of like there's this idea that when you're an adult, like you're an adult, and you're I mean they have moments, but like they have adult fun, like they're not kids, so like it's like it's like it's okay to have fun like a kid when you're little. It's okay to play pretend. Like let yourself dive in. It's fun, let yourself escape.
Well, and I think it's hard when they're like kicks in so much, right? That limits the ability to go back and play as we get older. And I think that's why I've always like thoroughly enjoyed working with kids, being in spaces where I'm supporting kids, like, because I am a very playful person. I always have been. Always done sports. I've always
and it keeps
music, like just very like eclectic interests of things that I can do. And I don't know. I think it's really grounding to be able to like step into that beauty. There's a lot of self-love in stepping into your fierce authenticity through play as well, I think, of just having those moments of like, like this is awesome.
Just joy.
I'm gonna full pure joy and pure bliss, and the ability to like step into it with comfort. That takes some time though. That takes some like self-love and some confidence work, and like this like releasing judgments of also the world.
What's right and wrong. And also like a level of mindfulness. Like it came to mind like bubbles and how you can sit there and like, or like, they are fun. They're pretty. You can try to pop them. Like, you can choose, I think, to engage or not. And it's funny. I've been, I have been a stay-at-home mother for a while now, like 2.5 years. So before that I worked at Montessori school and I worked as a preschool teacher, and then I worked in foster care for special needs children and adults, and then before that I worked at an adult day program. So I've always worked with people with special needs or children. And I'm always wondering, like, what should I do to do that? And I think that like practicing with my kids has been helpful too, of just, yeah, it's like magical staying in that space with them. Um, and I think it's special being able to help kids when in this day and age when like the worst thing about parenting is like the other parents and the other kids, because that sometimes I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, my kid can't come over. What are you talking about? No. But that's never really happened. But just in general, like, yeah, parents were never taught all of this sensory stuff. And so they don't know how to pass it on to their little kids or like their big kids. And so it's like there's so many free resources out there now. This one included.
This
And
podcast included.
there's so
Thank you,
many
Liz.
books. um
I love it.
like I think people forget that they can educate themselves. Like they don't look at it as a job, or they don't look at it. They're just like, I don't know what I'm doing. Well, it's like, okay, do something about it then. Do something about that. Download the free library app. I think you can even get books like cards
Oh,
online now,
absolutely.
maybe. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
So you can just like, or listen to there's a million everyone has a podcast now, go on YouTube, read a physical book, call a friend and be like, I'm struggling with this and I respect how you parent. Can you help walk me through it? Or an older sibling or your parents, if you, respect them like that.
Absolutely. I think it can be very insightful to, I think, just acknowledge, hey, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Like the feeling of overwhelmed in a human body is obviously very individualized, but I know I've experienced like rapid heart racing and just that, like, I don't know what to do. Frontal lobe turned off, I'm like, come on, brain, how are we going to come up with a solution? So it takes a lot of courage to ask for help and have those reflections of like,
Yeah.
something's not quite working. Let's see if there's something else that could be supportive.
And I think that like a lot of moms experience like the mom rage, where we get really overwhelmed, and then it is really fear, or like fear of failure, or feel of like what it comes out as rage, or anger. And a lot of moms will choose to go to wine for that, or whatever. I mean, whatever works. If wine works for you, like, and you're okay with it, then like no judgment, like but there's just like things that you can do that's gonna better your entire family's life. And being the woman, being the mom, like honestly, that's usually 99% of the time, like you're the leader of the ship. Like my husband is like an amazing, great dad. He helps like super well, but like I'm the leader of the ship. I have one more thing that I wanted to share that's been like a helpful parenting tip. So you know what? Make another reel. I I try to remind myself that like the gross tasks of like, like cleaning up poop, or like the mundane tasks of like laundry folding, or like doing laundry and like dishes and feeding my kids, it's all super important work. Like, so when I'm making this like lunch and I'm like, oh God, they're not even gonna eat this. Like, this is important though. Like, this is important work. Even if I'm not getting paid for it, even if I'm not getting bonuses, or like they're not really, they're grateful, but they're 2 and 4. So it's like, you don't get much back in appreciation. And same with my 9-year-old, and so I just like constantly remind myself, especially in the moments when you're like, it's like, okay, cleaning up this diarrhea mess is important work, because like my 2-year-old can't do it. He didn't mean to. Like, this is important though. So
yeah. And I think those are like, we are all sensory beings, and caring for each other's sensory needs as they start to learn their needs, right? And so although it may seem as like mundane daily tasks, those are the acts of love that help us beautiful connection moments. And I think I'd love to just kind of end on like final thoughts on like sensory awareness, and like anything that would be like a helpful just like wrap up for the listeners today of just thinking about our awareness. We talked through like a lot of really cool tools that you've been using, and things indoors, things outdoors, things in your car, like the listening and going through the mindful listening, but just kind of like maybe like your wrap up thoughts on sensory awareness.
I would say first and foremost, you have to focus on your, I don't know if you can hear, she's like by the door. First and foremost, you have to focus on yourself and your sensory needs. Like you can't save anyone else. You can't give what you don't have. So like if your kids are super dysregulated all the time, it's like you need to take a look at yourself. And sometimes that's kind of painful. Sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, I'm like really dysregulated a lot and I'm struggling with that, and sorry, Eloise is like right at the door, so I'm like a little bit distracted. I'm trying to thanks, Eloise, love you. She's putting a book on her. Yeah, so first and foremost, like do yourself, like be yourself, like take care of yourself, and then also everyone has, like I said, like everyone's allowed to be their unique, quirky self. So like, even if there are sensory things that kind of like drive you crazy about your loved ones, like try not to make them feel bad about it or like ashamed about it. Try to just like learn to support them, or like don't make them feel like there's something wrong with them. It's just a different view on the world. And then I think that's really important. As far as like physical stuff, my backyard it looks like a playground now. It has this big swing. My kids like to swing a lot, and we did the slip and slide this summer.
I remember when you first shared that video, and I was like, oh, I love this. Like, I wish I could fly down and go fly down that slip and slide.
Yeah.
Fun memories.
Yeah, I did it a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost done, Eloise. But yeah, and we have like one of those like backyard roller coaster things. And we do, I think also parents really underestimate the ability of children. And that's one thing I learned in Montessori, that kids are way more capable than you think they are. You just have to take the time to teach them things, So like if they're having a hard time regulating, teach them how to. First teach yourself how to. Like so for Eloise, like one of the biggest things I cannot stand as parents, like the whining or screaming kind of. And so they've learned to say like, help me. I always tell them, I don't understand that. Please say help me, and then I can help you. So you just like have to put the words in their mouth, or you can say I'm angry and stomp your feet, or take some space if you need some space, So yeah, it's been, and just being like patient with yourself. There's no such thing as a perfect mom. We all strive for this like random perfect person that we have in our head. That's just, as long as you're trying your best, and some days best is TV all day and mac and cheese, and some days best is like park all day or like the zoo, and organic snacks, so you just be gentle with yourself.
And I think it just like wraps up with like self-love, right? Self-love so we can give to others.
Self-love, like teach your kids to love themselves, and you have to love yourself first, and that's so hard. It's been a huge struggle. But
some beautiful words of wisdom, Liz. Thank you for sharing. And Liz, if people want to follow along your journey, can you share your YouTube channel so everyone can find you?
Yeah, it's Getting Found with Liz Browne, and my Instagram is Full Moon Mama 8, and I do some funny. I think they're funny.
Liz is a hoot
and stuff. I'm trying to. I'm trying to figure out the balance of everything. So it's nothing like I don't promise anything like any regular content or anything, because I have 2 kids at home. But yeah, I'm excited. So we'll see where it takes us, huh?
It's fun adventures. Well, Liz, thanks so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing just like reflections and time working together. And I just really enjoyed this reflection and all of our little things. So we'll say cheers with our little soda waters.
Yeah, cheers. Yay.
Our bubbly, tangy input to our mouth. So, with a straw and a happy dance. Maybe a little spin on my spin chair.
I get you guys in the chair. I'll go with this.
There we go. We'll end with a wiggly wobbly. And thank you so much for joining, Liz. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for joining me on this sensory adventure through Sensory Empower, the podcast. Remember, empowerment begins with awakening your senses. Subscribe now and embark on a journey of self-discovery and transformation. Until next time, may your senses guide you towards a life filled with peace, joy, and empowerment. Because true empowerment begins with embracing your senses.